Thank you. And just checking for other board members. I know that we're missing Tim. I was just on a meeting with Ed. I don't see him yet. There's Ed. I don't believe we have a quorum yet on the board. I only count 5 of us. I have not seen Sam. Tim has said that he would be absent. So we're missing Sam and Babette. Ed, you're muted. If you push enough buttons, you'll get it.
Thank you.
Oh, there's Maria.
I counted as saying I see Maria. I counted 6.
Okay. Okay, it's 4:03. Let's get the meeting started. We're going to rearrange the agenda a bit because Trudy has work to do and she's our staff presentation this month. We'll also move up the resolutions to ensure that we get those done before Ed has to leave at 5 o'clock. I'd like to start with the consent agenda, which is 1 board absence, that's Tim, and also the approval of the March 16th minutes. Do I hear a motion for to move the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Oh, that was Lenore and Christina. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any board member opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, it passes. So again, I'd like to rearrange the agenda. I'd like for Trudy to go do her presentation so she can go to work. And then I'll just be mindful of the fact that we need to ensure that we get in the resolutions before 5 o'clock. So Trudy, I will turn the floor over to you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to do this presentation. Everyone can hear me? Yeah? Okay, nice. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Thank you for your time. My name is Trudy J. Antoine. I'm currently working in the position of the Adult and Teen Services Librarian at the OCPL Beecham Branch Library on 2111 South Salina Street. But I am happy to say that I just received a promotion and I will be the Access Services Librarian at Central Library. Okay, so, but I'm here to talk about my work. And at Beecham, I do a variety of things. Firstly, I provide reference. I help find the answers to people's problems. Questions may be legal questions. They can deal with government agencies, requests for information about Nikola Tesla, the inventor, or where to find help on how to create a podcast. I provide technical instruction and support digital literacy, starting small with printing, copying, and faxing, using Wi-Fi and sending and attaching files. I dive deeper into with one-on-one tech trainings. So I assist people with email sign up, password reset and creation, helping people create accounts for job applications. I reword and reformat resumes, and I educate patrons about their resumes. I've helped people with the process of the newer job applications, which are more technical and may even ask for answers recorded by video or audio. In the last 2 years, I've worked often with helping people to complete unemployment authentication through the ID.me website. More recently, I've assisted with locating the 1099-G form for unemployment benefits. I'm the tech liaison between Beecham and the automation department. I'm also part of the CLRC Legislative Committee and support library advocacy. I run both teen and adult programs. Some of my programs include Science Fund for Families, Cell Phones for Seniors, Introduction to Google and Hoopla, The Art of Basquiat, Folk Songs with Elizabeth Liba Cotton, Q Robots, and a host of community programming collaborations. I also hold outreach programs at different community centers monthly. I'm a connector and I love to make connections between different organizations and artists. OCPL Beecham works collaboratively with Parks and Rec, for instance. Another instance is producing video content of community members and their stories. I recently produced a video called Quilts, Signposts to Freedom, which can be found on our Facebook. I also recorded a story time today with Assemblywoman Pamela Hunter, which will be posted on Tuesday, March 22nd at 10 a.m. I post to social media. I design flyers and promotional materials in Canva design program. I weed and develop the YA fiction, nonfiction collections. I've recently installed a new call number system for our YA manga and graphic novel collection. I assist at the front desk when necessary, answering questions, opening library cards, or checking out books. I also check out books at my desk if the patrons need me to. I like the work that I do because it is varied. I get to introduce our youth to new concepts and encourage our adults to be lifelong learners. I like helping them to find new reads and resources in our collections, our databases, and our community. I love helping to improve the world around me and to inspire creativity and optimism. I also enjoy learning from my patrons and my coworkers who help me to do what I do best. Thank you. Yeah. Any questions?
Trudy, thank you for that. You've been doing so much there. I can't imagine what they're going to do once you transition back to Central.
They've got it. They've got Tarshi, Sarah, Matessa, Sabrina, Ozzy. Am I missing somebody? They have everybody on board.
So for our newer board members, can you tell a bit about your history at OCPL? Because I know that you started as an intern, right? And then and worked in the makerspace. And so if you can just give a little bit of that, I think people would appreciate.
So I started as a management, I think it was like management personnel. It was an internship that was basically geared towards helping someone outside of the system gain that experience so that they would become competitive when they finally went for civil service. It took me 3 times to actually get to, in terms of taking the civil service, to actually be able to get into my position. So the civil service is definitely daunting, and it doesn't matter if you have a master's degree, most likely the first time you take it, you're going to get a 70 regardless of what you do. But taking that position did put me in the maker space with my former coworker, Dragana Drabanjak, who was the head of the maker space. And we worked really well together because she was also very tech oriented, was into music and art, and had an art therapy background. And I also have an art background. I studied library information science and museum studies. So when she basically had all these trainings in place, and she would just teach it to me, watch me once, teaching it to others, and then she kind of let me go. And so I was able to learn Arduino. I taught Arduino. I taught GarageBand, iMovie, how to use a CNC milling machine, 3D printer, Cricut, sewing machine, rock painting, you know. It's definitely been a technological journey. And coming to Beecham was really great because in the maker space, I learned all the technology, and I was able to work with older populations as well as some of the younger populations. And that's similar actually to what I do now. I work with teens and adults. And I just stay flexible, you know, like it requires me to do both. So I have to provide teen programs, but you know, I also have to make sure that the adults get what they need, and most of what they need is technology. So I've actually been lucky that, like, being a nerd and staying in on the computer in my teens actually ended up being useful for something. Yeah, now, as you can see from what I do, I just think like librarians, they have to be able to do it all, you know, specifically because it's what the community needs. So that's where our responsibilities come from. Like, it's not exactly internal or made up. It's like, okay, the adults need to get on the computer, the seniors have to upload something, or their grandkids keep texting them and they don't know how to text them back. You know, someone wants to purchase something from Amazon, but they're not aware of how to sign up using their credit card, you know, these types of things. Someone needs legal advice, you know. So it's part of it to keep track of all the different organizations that are necessary when you can't help people. But what's cool about working at Beecham is that it's so community focused. It's such a community focused branch. And so it taught me a lot about how to, like, people will come in and they'd be like, I don't know where this is. I don't know where this at. And it turns out there's like 2 or 3 organizations who do exactly what they need. So again, it's like kind of going back to the basics with reference, you know, it's like you just are trying to find out what they need and then how to fulfill that request. Yeah.
Trudy, thank you. And I want to point out that you started off as, I think, an administrative intern. I don't remember what the title was either.
Yeah, I was
but,
an intern. Yeah.
But it was meant to help diversify the OCPL staff, and you have done that in many different ways. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Any other questions for Trudy before she heads off?
Jill, if I may, I'm happy to see, I used to see Trudy occasionally at Beecham, but now I'll be glad to see her more often downtown again. And she was very valuable way back, especially in the makerspace. So, and obviously she's learned a lot and been very, very busy. So we'll be happy to have you back downtown soon.
Thank you so much, Ed.
Since I work a lot with seniors, I'm going to reach out to Trudy because some of the programs that she's talking about, we often hear, for example, seniors don't know how to delete messages on their phone, and they want a class on how to use their phone. So I'll be calling on you. I'm so excited to have met you, and I've got a lot of stuff that we can work on together.
Okay, great, Maria. I'm gonna need projects to start on once I get there. I'm already thinking like, oh, what am I gonna do? So
Anything else for Trudy before we move on? Trudy, have an awesome day. Okay, so if you joined late, we're rearranging the agenda to ensure that we get through the resolutions by 5 o'clock. And again, we put Trudy first because she needs to get back to work. We have 4 resolutions. And I'd like for us to turn attention to the resolutions now. They might need some discussion. Again, just want to ensure that we have a proper amount of time to talk about them and then to vote on them. So again, 4 resolutions. The first resolution is 2204. It says resolved that the Osterfield Board of Trustees approves the expenditure of up to $4,000 from the board's unrestricted funds to cover the costs of the system retreat being held on May 3rd. Can I have someone move that now that I've read it?
I will.
Christina, thank you.
Yeah.
Do I hear a second?
I second.
I think I heard Edda's voice.
Yes.
Thank you. So any discussion on this? This came up last month. Christian withdrew it and then, and now it's coming back. Christian?
Jill, yeah, I just had one thing to add. Amanda and I have been working with this. I don't see us being able to redo the system retreat proposal in time for May. So I think that we're going to be looking, or the date that we currently have, I think we'll be moving the system retreat to a date in September. Amanda, I think you said September 18th. Was that the date we had talked about?
We had talked about, I haven't pulled the members yet about that,
Right.
but it's usually in line with the member council meeting. So it'd be the first Tuesday in September.
Yeah, I think we feel like that would give us some time to prepare a really good event and prepare an event that maybe we could pull together for that group and give us a little bit of time to do that. We have been able to do some work, or actually the committee has been able to do some work on staff development day. That's a harder day to change because of course we're closed on that day. So we felt that we needed to stay close to that day, but that the system retreat, it's been 2 years, we haven't had it. Maybe if we were able to move it back to September, we would have maybe a less rushed event and be able to do something that would be kind of to the standards that the board is looking for.
Okay. And so that then should be changed to be held in September?
Yes.
Okay. Any other conversation about the system retreat?
I have a question.
Sure.
Does Brian Donnelly, does he approve of this?
I mean, this is not county money, so Brian hasn't, I mean, this is something that's in, the system retreat is built into our grants through the state. And Brian is aware of it, but we're not using county funding for it. So I think he's aware of it. I don't, yeah.
And I believe the system retreat is something that the system has to do.
Yes.
It's part of
Okay.
our services to the system.
Yes.
It's never, I'm using the word never. I know that there's always an exception, but never been funded by county funds. It's always funded through board funds that the board holds. Anything else? You know, I'm not realizing this says board unrestricted funds. I know that there was some conversation about this being focal funds.
I think we're still talking to Focal about that, right, Jill? I don't know if we have a representative on today.
We have Kim and we have Angela. They're both here.
I wasn't looped in, so maybe Angela was in the discussion.
I wasn't looped in either, so.
I know that Angela, you had emailed a month ago about
Right.
perhaps funding the proposals from February with focal funds.
Correct. Yeah, we're very interested in doing something like this to show the library employees how much we appreciate what they've done. And we just think it's a wonderful way for us to acknowledge them. So we were hoping that we could use some of those funds. But I haven't heard anything since I threw it out in terms of a resolution.
Gail has her hand up.
So I think what we're thinking is there is already focal funds in the boards of trustees from gifts this past year and the year before. So it's nothing that they would have to vote on now because there's already funds in there previously that we didn't designate. We used to designate them, like so much would go to branch and central programming, so much would go to training, so much would go to like ebooks and materials. So technically, even though it's the board's unrestricted funds, the focal funds are already in there. So you don't really have to designate this particular one to say focal, as long as I know what sub-account I'm pulling it from. It doesn't really, technically, it doesn't matter because there's funds already there. Going forward, yes. Like if you donated funds to the library and said, we're doing $20,000 and we want it all to training, yes. But for this particular one, being that we already have funds in there, you can leave it as is if it's easier.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm just making note, it would be the focal sub-account for my mental notes for later. Any other?
Call the
So-
question.
Okay, let me go down to the list. Ella,
Yes.
Lenore,
Yes.
Christina,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Maria,
Yes.
Babette.
Yes.
I'm also yes. I don't believe Sam is here. So the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Resolution 2205 resolves that the Oceanville Board of Trustees approves the expenditure of up to $8,000 from the board's unrestricted funds to cover the cost of OCPL Staff Development Day being held on May 6th. Will someone move this?
I'll move it.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second, Babette.
Babette, thank you. Any discussion? Christian?
Hey, so thank you so much. This is a date that we have to stay much more tightly tied to because we are publicly closed. You know, we're not open to the public because we need all of our working staff to be there. Becky and the Staff Development Day Committee have been doing excellent work. They have a really, really great option for us. We're kind of fingers crossed that we'll be able to lock it down. It would be an offsite location that would be really fun. I kind of don't want to talk about it in public until we get it locked down. Becky's working on it quite hard. Our hope is that I would be able to update all of you with at least a provisional contract that you could take a look at from Monday, or at least early next week, depending on when our partner agencies can get involved. The goal is not to move that date, however. That's an important date for us. So as we close that loop, we'll let you folks know, but hopefully that's Becky's got a really good line on something that could be really, really fun. We just need to make sure that we're locked into it.
Christian, thank you. One of the things that the Finance Committee thought about when we looked at the proposals was that we wanted the two events to be equitable. And so that is why you see the increase of funding for the Staff Development Day as a way of hoping that they can be equitable between the Staff Development Day and the System Retreat. And I should have said that sooner, but so if you paid attention, you saw the cost go up. That's why the cost went up. Any other comments? So then let's vote. Etta,
Yes.
Lenore,
Yes.
Christina,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes,
Maria,
Yes,
Babette,
yes.
and I'm also yes. So it passes unanimously. Again, I should have said this sooner, but this is another one where Focal has expressed interest in us using the funds that already exist in our account. So Focal, thank you for that. Staff, I'm sure, are very appreciative of your support for the work that they do. The third resolution is 2206. Resolved that the OSPL Board of Trustees approves the grant application submission to Excellis Blue Cross Blue Shield in the amount of $3,900 to provide funding for marketing for our telehealth booth and a health fair grand opening. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move it.
A second?
Second.
second it.
I heard Christina first.
Okay.
Discussion? I think this relates to something in Becky's report about telehealth kiosks. And so if, Christian, if you could tell us a bit more about the telehealth project to kind of put it all in perspective.
Sure, of course, and I'd be happy to defer to my colleagues. If there's things that I miss, I'd invite them to fill in on that. One of the things that we've seen as a result of COVID is that people are doing more and more health appointments, legal appointments, largely health appointments online. For a lot of folks, that's easy enough. You can do it in your kitchen and that's great, but that works if you have privacy, that works if you have a high bandwidth, that works if you have the technology in order to have a positive experience with that, with that telehealth, including the confidentiality of the link. You really can't do a telehealth appointment on the floor in a library. It really just doesn't kind of work that way. Don't really want to be showing people things or talking to people about personal stuff. So one of the areas that people are looking at, we had CLRC reach out to this is partially ARPA money, was to create these telehealth booths. They are a small privacy booth, a lot like you would find like a mother's privacy booth in an airport kind of a thing, very similar kind of a construction, small, not very intrusive, looks nice, allows for privacy within the space without it feeling like, a box. But within that, we would also be putting in the technology that would allow someone to have a conversation with a doctor, a conversation with a lawyer, a conversation with a social worker. Of course, the telehealth is the first thing that we think of, but the applications kind of write themselves and are fairly evident given the kind of work that we do with our populations. This grant is for the marketing around it. So it would be a wrap to make it more attractive, seem friendlier, seem available, and then a health fair to kind of introduce the idea and support the idea. So this is material, and Becky, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but these are booths that we're going forward on. These are things that we're getting from ARPA, but this grant is to make them more accessible, better, not really accessible, more friendly, more marketable, really, and as such, making them more part of the community.
Christian, thank you. What do these booths look like? The only booth I can think of are the two at the mall. I can also think of telephone booths. Are they little rooms? Are they telephone booths? Are they glass? What are they?
I do have an image that I can share, if I can share my screen real quick.
Sure, as long as you have permission to do that.
I have both a generic one and we are getting a wrap, privacy wrap on it as well. Let me, Okay, I'm just going to share my screen. We are getting the decibel double. We will be getting it without the furniture that comes in it, because if the furniture comes with it, then it's no longer ADA accessible. We are getting a ramp that goes with it as well. And we're getting one at Central and one at Mundy.
That
I don't
answers
know if
my
that's
other
gonna-
question. Yeah, that answers my other question too about where they're going to be located besides Central.
Any other questions? We're really excited. So they should look like this one here.
Any other questions about this resolution? Becky, you want to unshare your screen? Thank you. Christian, you have your hand up. Do you have? Okay. So if there's nothing else to discuss with this, again, this is funding for marketing for telehealth and for the health fair grand opening. So we'll vote. Etta,
Yes.
Lenore,
Yes.
Christina,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Maria,
Yes.
Babette,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes. Thank you. Final resolution. 2207, that resolves that the Oakdale Board of Trustees approves the grant application submission to CLRC New Initiatives Grant for $2,000 to fund a weekly social emotional learning tween manga anime after school program. I'm not sure if that's for or with W.H. Smith School for the 2022-2023 school year. And then there's a little text on the bottom of the resolutions about what this is in terms of program expenses. So a little bit of extra text. But this is, again, approving of a grant application to CLRC. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Babette, thank you. A second?
Second.
Lenore, thank you. Any discussion?
I would be interested, who designed, like, using manga? I happen to know what manga is, so.
So I can answer that since it's my branch, I guess. So the tweens who come into our branch are, they're always looking for manga and anime. So manga is like Japanese graphic novels that you read backwards. They're really interesting. Kids love them. And so my youth services librarian has been in touch with both H.W. Smith and also with the anime club advisor at Nottingham, where a lot of these kids would go after they graduate the 8th grade. And this has been found just to be a really great way to get kids into the library and to help with that social emotional learning, which particularly after the past 2 years has been really hard on these kids. So that's why she came up with this idea.
Thank you.
Amanda, thank you. Christian?
I just wanted to speak to that. It's a really great leverage in. It's something that people have been using manga and anime to kind of have these conversations with teens. And for about a decade or so now, it's a really well-proven strategy. And I think it's really worth our while to support this, particularly since there's the emotional component of it, which I think is really an intelligent and a really interesting, thing to bring to the table on this. I'd really like to get the support for this grant.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Yes, Jill. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Question about whether, what the costs involved, because maybe this is something we want to extend to all our city branches, and maybe even members might be interested in this. So question about what the costs are for. Will it be, in other words, this kind of startup for every place this gets taken?
So the cost, I believe, on the board website is the full cost breakdown on the OCPL website. But it's for the facilitator, which would be the educator over at Nottingham who would come here. It is to drastically increase our manga collection so that we have the correct items for use with this. Unfortunately, the YA budget in the city is not tremendously high, so this will just kind of be extra stuff to what Quinn is already able to get for us. There's also some money in there just for some snacks, because that brings the kids in as well. And for this anime like website that currently is free, but due to being bought out by a larger corporation, we're a little worried that libraries are going to have to start paying for it. I love the idea that maybe this could expand. I'm thinking maybe this would be a good pilot. And, you know, if it works here, we are always happy to talk to other libraries and see if we can help them implement something similar. Plus, kids from all over obviously could come. Like, we would not limit it. It's just that we're working with H.W. Smith, and they are being kind enough to give us access to all their SEL like databases, because those cost a lot of money. So by partnering with them, we're making sure that we're using the same stuff that they're using, and also to save OCPL money.
Amanda, thank you. And that the full proposal is on the board webpage. Any other comments? So let's vote again on this grant application. Etta,
Yes.
Lenore,
Yes.
Christina,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Maria,
Yes.
Babette,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes. So that passes unanimously. Thank you. So I'm going to leave the reports for last. Again, thinking about things where we all need to be here to discuss. One of the discussion this month is on the book challenge policy, and this is our first consideration of this policy. I believe this is a new policy for OCPL, not connected with the collection development policy, but standing on its own. And so I'll turn this over to Christian for the discussion, introduction and discussion.
Great, thank you very much, everyone. This actually loops back to a conversation that we had, I think, about 2 to 3 months ago, as we were starting to have a conversation about some of the trend towards challenges in the United States. We had a challenge policy, which we discussed at that time, was shared out with folks kind of what the procedure was. But the problem was that it was tied to a much older document, this our collection management policy, which is actually a document from 1995 and is tied into that document. What I wanted to do with this, or what the goal was that we discussed, was to pull it out and have it be a separate policy, so that if we were challenged on materials at any point, if there were an active challenge that came our way, we would have a updated, current, modern policy that would be tied to kind of what we're doing now. It's a very procedural policy, but I'm recommending we still are tied to the American Library Association's right of use and kind of the work that they've done on the intellectual freedom front. And then the procedure is what we've been through before. So if there's a challenge, we then convene an ad hoc committee. That committee has members of system. It also has members of either central or branches, depending on where the origination of the challenge is. If the challenge is here at central, then staff at central will be selected. If it originates in one of our branches, then branch staff will be on that team. That team reviews the material following standard practice, reviews collection standards, whether or not it is held in large collections, popularly across the country, kind of collection trends, as well as critical reviews. They then make a recommendation to the executive director, on whether or not the material should be removed. The executive director makes a decision based on, at least in part on the recommendation or largely influenced by the recommendation of the committee. And then the executive director reaches back to the person who has the challenge or the concerns. If they are unhappy with the decision, then they can appeal to the board. And then the board will review all of the materials and decide whether or not a hearing is merited. If they decide that a hearing is not merited, then they will not have a hearing. If the board decides that a hearing is merited, then they will open up a hearing about a discussion of the title. Then going off of the recommendations of the committee and the executive director, as well as the concerns of the member of the public. And it's important to note that the materials do not come out of circulation during the process. So if there is a challenge, and the reason for this is that, it would be easy enough to challenge materials, and the act of challenge itself would pull the materials from circulation. Our policies and standard library practice is that that is not the case, so that the material can be assessed and determined on its own value, and that the act of challenging itself is not enough to pull the material out of use. It's the same policy that we've had before. It's just pulled out on its own. It's very standard. This is a fairly standard response that libraries would have to this stuff. I just felt that it's important that as we have these conversations, it's useful to have it as a standalone text, and that's also useful for the board to be aware of it. We've already had one kind of tenuous beginning of a concern that we were able to address. Something like this is something that we're going to want to have in our pocket. Ed, did you have a question for me, or was it to the general group?
Yes, no, in general about the policy.
Yep.
To you in the first instance. Let's at the point at which the ad hoc committee, let's say, decides, is the board informed either way, or
I would
other
assume
words-
that the board would be involved in the conversation throughout. Certainly if a decision comes down from the ad hoc committee, then the board would want to be, informed. I don't know that that's written into the policy. We could certainly add it if it was something that you felt was important.
I think it would be useful if
Sure.
if we knew, and then we could monitor how it's going, and then if it's coming to the board because it's been appealed,
Sure.
we'd be a little bit of a heads up on what's going on.
Mhm. Okay.
So perhaps when the challenge goes to the committee, the board can be copied, just in some way made aware, in case there are questions, or in case the challenger approaches the board with questions. Any other comments on this? Questions?
This says first consideration, so that means what? We're not going to vote today. We're voting next month.
We'll vote. So this is our time to give feedback, time to, if there's any changes you want to see, anything you don't understand, anything that needs to be clarified. It gives us time. It gives other people, if other people have concerns about the policy, it gives them time. I'm not hearing anything.
Oops,
Are
wrong
you trying
one.
to- are you trying to raise your hand?
Yeah, I am.
Go ahead.
So what you can do, how it's worked in the past is the board actually votes on moving the first consideration to a resolution at the next board meeting. Or you could do a second consideration, but if you think it's going to be ready within the next board meeting, the board just votes on moving it from a consideration to a resolution.
So up to the board if you want to do that.
I'll move it.
So you're moving the challenge policy from being a consideration to having it be a resolution.
For
At-
consideration at the next board meeting. Yes.
at the April board meeting. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Babette, thank you. Okay, so this means that we'd be voting on this in April, once it becomes a resolution. Okay, so Etta,
Yes.
Lenore,
Yes.
Christina,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes,
Maria,
Yes.
Babette.
Yes.
So thank you, Christian, and whomever else worked on this policy. We appreciate it. Nice for it to come to us for first consideration. And now we know that this will come back to us in April as a resolution. Again, if people have questions or concerns, please feel free to send them to Christian. But having seen others like this, I know that this is very similar to what other libraries have. Purposeful but simple is one way of that I think about it. Okay, so definitely not least, but we do have a number of reports that have come to the board this month. And so I'll just kind of go down through them quickly and see if there's questions. We have a report from Christian, the executive director's report.
I would just add one thing to the executive director's report. Dane and I had a really great conversation with some folks at Center State CEO about kind of where we're going with our EDI statements and training and some things that we're looking at doing there. So that was a really fruitful conversation that I'm looking forward to building on. Then we also had an excellent conversation around One Syracuse, One Shakespeare, Salt City, hashtag Salt City Shakespeare, hashtag Salt City Bard, something like that. It's a partnership that we're doing with Red House, Syracuse Shakespeare in the Park, the Everson. We are reaching out to some folks at Lemoyne. We're reaching out to the ballet, to the opera, about having just kind of a general conversation in the community around Macbeth over the next few months. It's a project that will be kicking off, soon to support Red House as they're doing their production of Macbeth, which starts on April 1st, and then kind of doing some outdoor programming potentially with the Everson, a lecture series possibly with the Everson, and then also supporting Syracuse Shakespeare in the Park as they head into their production. Should be a fun group of discussions, and it's going to be a nice little cultural bump for us.
Christian, thank you. So one thing that was not in your report that I know is progressing is Find Free. And I believe that there's some synergy happening with the county executive's office in terms of announcing that. Can you give us an update on where that stands?
Yeah, of course, we've been trying to coordinate with the county executive's office. We felt that it would be really nice if we could do a big announcement and then run that letter the next day, kind of doing in partnership with the county to show how strong the library is, the support that we've had from the county. Val, who is doing our communications department right now, is we're actually also in the process of interviewing for the communications position. So we are making progress on that. But Val's been working with Justin, and it's our hope that, there's been conversation about possibly doing a press conference, possibly making the announcement at the state of the county. And so we're really just kind of trying to do this as close a handshake as possible. We're kind of waiting for them and their timing. But we're ready to go. I mean, our organization is ready to go on it. We just want to make sure that we're working as a good partner.
Jill, you're muted.
Jill, you're muted.
I hit it. It didn't go off. When is the state of the county?
23rd of March,
Oh, soon.
I believe.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any questions for Christian and his report? The only thing I want to highlight in my report of moving forward is that this is our last virtual meeting. The law that has allowed us to meet virtually during the pandemic ends today. And so our April meeting will be in person. It will be at the Central Library. All board committee meetings will now be in person, likely at the Central Library. And so please check your calendars, schedule travel time, which is something that we have not had to do for many months. But I do know it'll be wonderful to see everyone in person. For our newer board members, I think it'll be good for you to see everyone in person and learn everyone's name, realize how short some of us are, and just have a time to kind of bond together. So again, April board meeting in person, Central Library. So we have many reports. We have one from Amanda Travis from the system library directors, the suburban library directors. There's probably nothing, I'm not sure if there's anything, Amanda, to be highlighted, except for the fact that Lafayette does have a new director. It's Jessica Rice, who is coming from the SU libraries. And I noted that many years ago, she was an OCPL librarian. And so she does have a history with the city libraries. I'll just keep going down through, being mindful of time. We've already talked about, from Becky, about operations and the telehealth kiosks. I don't know if there's anything else in terms of operations that should be noted or any questions. Okay, and I want to thank Becky for showing us what the kiosks look like. Amanda Shavoli with Member Services. Amanda also had the transit report. And one of the things that I noted is that even though there were some weather hassles in February, transit went really well. So thanks to Jesse and everyone else for that. And Amanda is also involved with all the different member council committees that now are happening. And so I think we can see some of that in her monthly report. Amanda, anything else you want to highlight? Or any questions for Amanda Shavoli? Meg Van Patten has taken over for Alyssa Ali, who has moved to Cazenovia. And we talked about her move last month. Meg, I do have one question about your report. You noted, I hope she's here.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. So you know the 1% increase on member library obligations. And so does that mean that member libraries in their own budgets are paying 1% more towards?
Did I not say it? I might have missed on it that I didn't say that it's for the overdrive. So a while ago, a few years ago, the member libraries all agreed to put in a certain percentage of their book budget, collection budget, towards overdrive, and we just increased that by 1%. So we're just agreeing to give a little more than we have because of the popularity of the collection.
Okay, so you answered my question. It's actually their budget going towards overdrive. It's not their budget going towards the system.
Right. So when we spend money from our budget, at least I think it was 6 and now we're 7, or it was 5 and now it's 6. That percentage of our budget when we order ebooks for Overdrive, we will spend at least that much. And actually, several libraries have been able to spend even more than that. I know we have it, I think Liverpool, but yes. So it was a way we came up with to contribute to what is truly a shared collection.
Meg, thank you. Thank you for that. I believe there's only 2 other reports that I have noted. One is Mark's finance report. If there are questions for Mark. I wonder, Mark, have we closed out 2021 formally?
I just received some reports today from FinOps, and I'm going through them to make sure they're. I believe they're just closing out. So I'm going to be working on my annual report stuff for Amanda. I just got an email at 2 o'clock, so I haven't had a chance to really go through it. So I'll when I have more information, I'll get it to you.
Thanks. I was just worried. I was just wondering about the timing because I know it always takes longer than I think it should.
Yeah, they usually, at the end of, they usually take February to do it. And so sometimes it spills over into March. And then they have to verify the numbers and all that. So it's a big task.
Anybody else have questions for Mark on finance? I always look at Ed, since he often has the question.
No, I read it. I don't have any questions.
Okay. And so the last report is, I think it was just a flyer from Focal, noting that we have 2 speakers left. We have Fran Leibowitz, and then, and now I have forgotten the other person's name.
Yeah, poet Ocean Vuong in May.
Jill, I have to give a shout out to Kim. We had a little bit of a heckler at the last at the last lecture, and she just did a marvelous job of shutting him down. Like, she kept her poise. It was just a sheer delight to watch her in action and kind of keep everything moving along. So Kim, thank you so much for that. And I really enjoyed the lecture. So.
Thanks, Bev. It was, he was phenomenal. If any of you that had the opportunity to see Dr. Eddie Glaude last Wednesday, he spoke about nothing he's ever spoke publicly about. So everyone in that audience had a rare treat of hearing about his upbringing and his relationship with his father. And he was very vulnerable. And I mean, the man got a standing ovation. I think he was really well received. So again, it was just a really wonderful evening, and I hope everybody that was there enjoyed it or viewed it. And so, yep, we're on to Fran next April, and April 19th, and at that event, Angela will be announcing our 28th season. So we're booked and ready to go for season 28, and it's a good one, you guys. I'm just gonna say, that's all. I'll tease you there, and I'll leave it that.
Yeah, Kim, you and Eddie Glaude both handled the heckler very well, and to have the audience then all boo the heckler was just wonderful. What a moment. So have I missed any reports? Looking at Christian.
Jill, I need to leave. So
Okay.
thank you all.
Yeah.
See you soon. I'll see you.
Yeah.
See the trustees in April 5th for the Ossie Golden Award, right? And then the April meeting.
Yes. Oh, yes, we should make that announcement. So April 5th at 3:30 afternoon at the Central Library downtown, we will be giving the Ossie Golden Award. Selection has happened. There will be a reception at the library with the recipient and probably the person's family and others. Staff will hopefully be there. Board are welcome to come, and we've asked that Focal also be invited to that event. So again, that's April 5th. It's a Tuesday, if I remember correctly, 3:30 in the afternoon, I believe in the community room.
Correct, correct. And we automatically send invitations out to the whole board and all of Focal.
Anything else from the board or from Christian?
I have something. So we have been talking about strategic planning, and we are trying to get this process started. So I'm going to be working with Christian and with Sam. We're going to be the little micro committee to get some dates down. Christian is identifying an internal team, and we're looking forward to this process and sharing with you guys all the amazing things that are happening and can happen and will happen, and being strategic and looking at building our capacity and competencies and skills and all that really great stuff. So excited about all of the expertise that's going to be sitting at that table, thinking about where OCPL is moving towards. So more to come.
And I can imagine that Christina and the finance committee will be interested in that discussion, because it could help them then prioritize spending over not only this year, but for years to come. So there'll be some nice synergy across committees with that work. So thank you, Babette. Anything else? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Babette, thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Lenore, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any board member want to stay later? Then, and no abstentions, I'm assuming. Then I will see you all in April, hopefully for the Ossie Golden Award and also for the board meeting, both at the Central Library. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you,
It's 5:05 and we're done.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.